Gallery opening was supposed to be safe and elegant. A celebration of my best friend's photography exhibition in the heart of Manhattan's art district. I wore a cream silk dress that brushed my knees. My hair was twisted up in a way that made me feel older than 24, more sophisticated than I actually was. I was standing near the champagne table when Marcus approached. Marcus Chinali, from the consulting firm where I worked as a junior analyst. He was harmless and friendly. He had asked me to coffee twice, and I had politely declined both times. But he was persistent in that puppy dog way that never felt threatening. "Elena," he said, smiling as he reached me. "You look beautiful tonight." "Thank you." I returned the smile, shifting slightly away, but the crowd pressed close around us. His hand landed on my waist. It was not aggressive, not even inappropriate by most standards. It was just a casual touch, fingers spreading across the silk at my hip as he leaned in to speak over the music. "I was thinking we could grab dinner after," he began. He never finished the sentence. One moment his hand was there, the next it was gone, wrenched away with such sudden force that Marcus stumbled backward, his face going white. I turned. A man stood between us now. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my rent. His hand was locked around Marcus's wrist, his knuckles pale with pressure. And his face, God. His face was all sharp lines and dark eyes like black glass, with a jaw that could have been carved from marble. But it was the expression that made my breath catch. It was absolute cold fury, barely contained beneath a veneer of control. "That is the last time," the man said. His voice was low and quiet, the kind of quiet that made every word feel like a blade. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. The man, whoever he was, held Marcus's wrist suspended between them for another second, then released it with deliberate slowness. Marcus jerked back, cradling his arm, his eyes wide with something beyond embarrassment. It was fear. I did not," Marcus stammered. "Leave. One word. That was all it took." Marcus fled into the crowd like a man escaping a burning building. I stood frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs, staring at the stranger who just, defended me? Acted on my behalf? I did not even know him. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze made me take an involuntary step back. "You are unhurt." His tone had shifted. It was still controlled, but softer, almost gentle. Yes, I am fine." My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Who are you?" Something flickered across his face. It was not quite a smile. "Dante." Just the one name, as if it should mean something to me. "I did not need you to do that," I said, though my hands were shaking. "He was not. He touched you." The words hung between us, heavy with implications I could not quite grasp. "I do not understand," I whispered. Dante's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he just looked at me. He studied me, really studied me, like he was memorizing every detail of my face. Then he reached into his jacket and produced a card, holding it out between two fingers. "If anyone bothers you again, call this number." I took the card automatically. It was heavy stock with embossed lettering. It had just a phone number, no name. Why would? But when I looked up, he was already walking away. The crowd parted for him like water around stone. I stood there, champagne forgotten, staring at the card in my trembling hand, trying to understand what had just happened. The gallery blurred around me after that. I found my friend Sophia near her featured installation, a series of haunting black and white portraits. "Sophia?" I said, touching her elbow. "Who was that man? The one in the black suit?" She followed my gaze across the room, but he was gone. "Which one?" "There are like 50 men in black suits here, babe. Tall, dark hair. Looked like he could kill someone with his bare hands." Sophia laughed. "That describes half the art collectors in New York." "Why?" I shook my head, tucking the card into my clutch. "Nothing. Never mind." But it was not nothing. That night, alone in my studio apartment in Brooklyn, I pulled out the card and stared at it under my bedside lamp. The number seemed to glow against the stark white background. "If anyone bothers you again, call this number." Why had he cared? Why had he looked at Marcus like he wanted to break more than just his wrist? And why did the memory of Dante's eyes, dark, possessive, and knowing, make my skin feel too tight? I set the card on my nightstand and turned off the light. But sleep was incapacitated, because somewhere in the back of my mind, beneath the confusion and the fear, was something else. Recognition. Not of his face, for I had never seen him before tonight, but of the way he had looked at me. He looked like he already knew me, like I was already his. I pulled the blankets up to my chin and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of sirens wailing somewhere in the distance. That is when I noticed it. Through my fourth-floor window, parked across the street under the broken streetlight, sat a black Mercedes. The windows were tinted and the engine was off. It had not been there when I came home. I watched it for 10 minutes, then 20. It did not move. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, making me jump. It was an unknown number. My heart stopped. I grabbed the phone, my hands shaking, and opened the message. Lock your door. Do not open it for anyone tonight. I shot up in bed, rushing to my front door. The deadbolt was locked, but I added the chain for good measure, then returned to the window. The Mercedes was still there. I should have been terrified. I should have called the police. Instead, I clutched my phone to my chest and felt something strange unfurl in my stomach. He was watching over me. This stranger, this man named Dante, who had grabbed another man's wrist with restrained violence just for touching my waist. I looked at the card again, then at the message, then at the black car keeping vigil in the darkness below, and somehow I knew with absolute certainty that my life had just split into a before and an after. Before Marcus touched me, and after Dante stopped him. I did not sleep that night. I just sat by the window watching the Mercedes, wondering who was inside, wondering why I was not more afraid. The Mercedes was gone when dawn broke over Brooklyn. I stood at my window with cold coffee in my hands, staring at the empty space where it had been. I felt strangely abandoned, which was insane. I did not know this man. I did not owe him anything. I should not want anything from him, but I did. I wanted answers. At work that morning, I noticed Marcus's desk was empty. His computer was dark. His coffee mug, the one with the stupid motivational quote, was missing from its usual spot. Marcus called in sick. Jennifer from accounting said when I asked. Apparently, he is taking a few days off. Something cold settled in my chest. I pulled out my phone in the bathroom, staring at that unknown number. My fingers hovered over the call button for 5 full minutes before I shoved the phone back in my pocket. No, I needed to forget about this. About him. About the way his hand had caught Marcus's wrist with such lethal precision. It was as if violence was a language he spoke fluently, but the card burned against my palm like a brand. 2 days passed. Normal days, safe days. I went to work, came home, ordered takeout, and watched the street below my window. There was no Mercedes. I told myself I was relieved. I was lying. On the 3rd night, I went to dinner with Sophia at a new Italian place in Tribeca. She spent the meal talking about a photographer she had met at the gallery opening, and I pretended to listen while pushing pasta around my plate. You are distracted, Sophia said finally, setting down her wine glass. What is going on? Nothing. Just work stress. Bullshit. You have been weird since the gallery. Did something happen? Yes. No, I said instead. I am fine. Sophia studied me with those sharp, knowing eyes that had seen through my lies since we were roommates in college. But before she could press further, the restaurant door opened, and Dante walked in. My breath caught. He wore charcoal gray tonight, the suit fitting him like armor. His dark hair was pushed back from his face, revealing those sharp cheekbones and that jaw that looked like it had never smiled. Our eyes met across the restaurant. He did not look surprised to see me. He looked satisfied. Elena? Sophia's voice sounded far away. You okay? You are pale. Dante moved through the restaurant like he owned it, and maybe he did. The hostess practically bowed as he passed. The waiters stepped aside, and other diners watched with wary recognition. He stopped at our table. Miss Moretti. His voice was exactly as I remembered. Low, controlled, and devastating. May I speak with you? Sophia's eyebrows shot up. I am sorry. Who are you? It is okay, I said quickly, though nothing about this was okay. I will just be a minute. I stood on shaking legs and followed him toward the back of the restaurant, acutely aware of every eye tracking our movement. He led me to a private alcove near the bar, far enough from the main dining room that our conversation would be private. Are you following me? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Yes. The honesty shocked me into silence. You have been watching me, I whispered. That was you in the car. The text message. Yes. Why? Dante stepped closer, and I instinctively backed up until my spine hit the wall. He did not touch me. He kept a careful foot of distance between us, but his presence was suffocating. Because you need protection. From what? His jaw tightened. From men who think they can touch you without consequence. Marcus? He barely. It does not matter how far he went. Dante's voice dropped to something dangerous. He touched what is mine. The words hit me like a physical blow. I am not yours, I said, but my voice shook. I do not even know you. You will. It should have sounded arrogant or threatening. Instead, it sounded like a promise. I want you to leave me alone, I said, though the words felt like lies on my tongue. Dante studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes tracking every micro-expression on my face. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. My hands shook as I took it. The image showed a man I did not recognize. He was middle-aged, in an expensive suit, with cold eyes. Viktor Koslov, Dante said. Russian bratva. 3 nights ago, he put a contract on you. The room tilted. What? Why would? I do not understand. I am nobody. I work in corporate analysis. I do not. Your father borrowed money. Dante's voice was gentle now, almost sympathetic. A lot of money from the wrong people. Before he died, he used your name as collateral. No. My father died when I was 19. That was 5 years ago. I do not. The debt transferred to you. I could not breathe. The walls were closing in. The photograph slipped from my numb fingers. Dante caught it mid-fall. Then he caught me too, as my knees buckled, his hands firm on my arms. Easy. His voice was right against my ear. Breathe, Elena. This cannot be real, I whispered. You are lying. I do not lie. And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. What do they want? My voice cracked. Money? I do not have it. It is not about money anymore. Dante's hands tightened fractionally on my arms. Koslov wants leverage. He wants to send a message. You are convenient. So what? I am just supposed to die because my father made bad choices? No. The word was absolute. Final. You are supposed to let me protect you. I pulled back to look at him, and the intensity in his gaze made my heart stutter. Why? Why do you care what happens to me? Dante's thumb brushed the inside of my wrist. It was so gentle it might have been accidental. But nothing about this man was accidental. Because 3 months ago, I saw you at a coffee shop near your office, he said quietly. You were reading a book, smiling at something on the page. The sun came through the window and caught your hair, and you looked. He paused, his jaw working. You looked like something I did not deserve to want. My breath caught. I had you investigated, he continued. I should have been horrified. But I was too stunned to move. Background check, financial records, everything. That is when I found your father's debt. I found out what Koslov was planning. You have been watching me for 3 months? Yes. That is insane. Yes, he agreed. But you are alive. I could not argue with that. What are you? I whispered. Police? Private security? Dante's smile was slight and humorless. I am what men like Koslov fear in the dark. Elena. I am the thing that makes them check over their shoulders. Understanding dawned slowly, like ice water down my spine. You are Mafia. He did not deny it. And you want to what? Protect me? Own me? Both. The honesty was brutal and intoxicating. I should run, I said. You should. Dante's hand came up to cut my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. But you will not, because you felt it too at the gallery. That recognition. Yes, I thought. God help me, yes. I am not a good man, Elena, he murmured. But I am the only thing standing between you and a very ugly death. So you have a choice. Walk away now. Take your chances with Koslov. Or come with me. Let me keep you safe. And if I choose you, my voice was barely a whisper. What does that cost me? Dante's eyes darkened. Everything. I did not go back to Sophia's table. Dante led me out through the kitchen. The staff parted as if he were royalty. We walked into a waiting black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who did not make eye contact. My purse, I said weakly. Your friend already handled it. Dante slid in beside me, his presence consuming the entire back seat. Your friend has been informed you had a family emergency. Your purse will be delivered to your apartment tomorrow. You cannot just... I can. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then looked at me. And I did, because in approximately 40 minutes, Kozlov's men will arrive at that restaurant. They will not find you. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing the weather, made my stomach drop. How do you know? Because I know how they think, how they hunt. Dante's jaw tightened. And because I have someone inside their organization. The SUV moved through Manhattan traffic with smooth efficiency. Heading uptown, I watched the familiar streets give way to increasingly expensive neighborhoods, until we crossed into the Upper East Side. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. That was not an answer, but I was too overwhelmed to push. We pulled up to a building that looked like it belonged in a European capital. All limestone and wrought iron, with doormen in actual uniforms. It was the kind of place I had walked past 100 times and never imagined entering. Dante's hand found the small of my back as we exited the vehicle, guiding me forward with proprietary confidence. The touch should have annoyed me. Instead, I leaned into it. The penthouse elevator required a key. Of course it did. We rode up in silence, my reflection ghostly in the polished brass doors. I looked small next to him, fragile, like a rabbit standing beside a wolf. The elevator opened directly into an apartment that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the city lights sprawling like fallen stars. Everything was clean lines in dark wood, leather and stone. It was expensive, but not ostentatious. It was the home of a man who had nothing to prove. "You live here?" I asked stupidly. "Sometimes." Dante moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. "I own properties throughout the city. This one is the most secure." He offered me a glass. Whiskey, by the smell. I took it, but did not drink. "I need to understand what is happening." My voice was steadier than I felt. "All of it, not just pieces." Dante nodded slowly, then gestured to the leather sofa facing those impossible windows. I sat. He remained standing, backlit by the city, looking like something carved from shadow. "Your father, Robert Moretti, borrowed $2 million from a loan shark named Yuri Petrov 7 years ago," Dante began. "Petrov was a mid-level operator in the Kozlov organization. Your father could not pay. Petrov was going to kill him, but your father offered something more valuable." My hands tightened on the glass. "You were 19, in college, beautiful and innocent." Dante's voice was clinical, but his eyes were dark. "Your father told Petrov that if he would give him 2 years, he would deliver you as payment. As property." Bile rose in my throat. "My father would not. Your father was desperate and weak." There was no judgment in Dante's tone, just fact. "But he died in that car accident before the 2 years were up. The debt should have died with him." Kozlov decided differently. "Why? If my father is dead, why come after me?" "Because Kozlov is building an empire, and empires are built on fear." Dante moved to the windows, hands in his pockets. "Letting a debt go unpaid, even from a dead man, shows weakness. He cannot afford weakness. So, he activated your father's contract. And you knew about this?" My voice was hollow. "For 3 months? Yes. Why did you not just tell me? Warn me?" Dante turned to face me, and the expression on his face was almost gentle. "Would you have believed me? A stranger approaches you on the street, tells you the Russian Mafia wants to kidnap you because of a father who died 5 years ago?" He shook his head. "You would have thought I was insane. Called the police. Gone about your life until Kozlov's men grabbed you off the street. He was right. I hated that he was right. So you just watched me instead? I protected you." The distinction seemed important to him. "I had men on you 24 hours a day. I monitored your routes, your habits, your vulnerabilities. And when that idiot at the gallery touched you, He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. "You what?" I whispered. I lost control. The admission seemed to cost him. I should have been subtle. I should have waited. But seeing his hand on you, seeing you smile at him like... He turned away. I could not. The confession hung between us, heavy with implications I was not ready to examine. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you stay here under my protection until I can negotiate with Kozlov or eliminate the threat entirely." "Eliminate?" I let the word sit there. "You mean kill him?" "If necessary." So casual, like discussing a business transaction. "And how long will that take? Days?" "Weeks at minimum. Possibly months." I stood abruptly, the whiskey sloshing in my glass. "I cannot just disappear for months. I have a job, an apartment, a life." "Elena," Dante's voice was patient. "You have a life because I am allowing you to have one. The moment you step outside my protection, you have approximately 6 hours before Kozlov finds you, and when he does, you will wish death was the worst thing he had planned." The calm delivery made it worse somehow. I moved to the windows, staring out at the city that suddenly felt like a cage. "So, I am a prisoner. You are protected. That is the same thing." "No." Dante moved behind me, close enough that I could feel his heat. "A prisoner has no choice. You chose to come with me. You did not exactly give me options. I gave you the only option that keeps you breathing." I turned to face him, and the proximity stole my breath. He was so close, close enough to see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, close enough to smell cedar and something darker. "I do not understand you," I whispered. "You say you saw me at a coffee shop, that you wanted me, but you are talking about killing people, about protecting me like I am some kind of possession. You are." His hand came up to cut my face, and I should have pulled away, but I could not move. "The moment I saw you, you became mine. I do not expect you to understand that, but you will learn. You are insane. Probably." His thumb traced my lower lip and my breath hitched. "But I am also the only thing keeping you alive, Elena. So for now, you will stay here. You will accept my protection. And eventually, you will accept everything else. And if I refuse?" Dante's smile was slight and dangerous. "You will not. The confidence should have infuriated me. Instead, I felt something else. Something warm and terrifying unfurling in my chest. Because he was right. I would not refuse, and that scared me more than anything else. A woman appeared then, tall and severe, dressed in black. She emerged from a hallway I had not noticed. "Mr. Dante," she said with a slight accent. "The guest room is prepared." "Thank you, Katya." Dante stepped back and I could breathe again. "This is Katya. She manages this residence. Anything you need, ask her." Katya's smile was professional. "Come, miss. I will show you to your room." I followed numbly, clutching my whiskey like a lifeline, acutely aware of Dante's eyes tracking my movement across the room. At the hallway entrance, I turned back. He stood, silhouetted against those massive windows, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the dangerous man he had claimed to be. "Dante?" "Yes. Thank you for telling me the truth." His expression softened fractionally. "Get some rest, Elena. Tomorrow we discuss what comes next." I nodded and let Katya lead me away, but I felt his gaze on me until the bedroom door closed and I was finally, blessedly alone. I set down the whiskey with shaking hands and sank onto the bed. It was massive, covered in silk sheets that probably cost more than my monthly salary. And then finally, I let myself cry. For my father's betrayal, for the life I just lost, and for the terrifying, impossible pull I felt toward a man who had claimed me like property. A man whose darkness should have repelled me, but did not. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and for a blissful moment thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw the clothes laid out on the chair. Designer labels. Exactly my size. Reality crashed back. Katya appeared with coffee and a soft smile. "Mr. Dante thought you might prefer breakfast in your room this morning." "Where is he?" "Business meeting. He will return this afternoon." She set the tray on the bedside table. "He asked me to give you a tour, help you settle in." Settling in implied a permanence I was not ready to accept, but I drank the coffee. It was perfect somehow. I let Katya show me around the penthouse. There were 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine, and a library with first editions I was afraid to touch. Everywhere were subtle signs of Dante's presence. A book on the coffee table, bookmarked halfway through, reading glasses on a desk, a jacket draped over a chair. He lived here. This was not just a safe house. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked as we returned to the main living area. Katya considered the question. 8 years. He saved my family from a very bad situation in Moscow. I owe him my life. The reverence in her voice was absolute. "What does he do exactly?" "I know he is involved in things. But what things?" Katya's expression shuddered. "That is not my story to tell, miss. But I will say this. Mr. Dante is a good man in a world that often punishes goodness. What he does to protect those who cannot protect themselves." It sounded like propaganda, like something she had been told to say. But she believed it. I could see that much. The day stretched endlessly. I tried to read but could not focus. I tried to watch television. Everything felt surreal. My phone, delivered by Katya, along with my purse, showed 17 missed calls from Sophia and a string of increasingly worried texts. "Sophia, are you okay? What happened?" "Sophia Elena, answer me or I am calling the police." "Sophia, your apartment door was locked from the outside. What is going on?" I stared at that last message for a long time before typing a response. "Me, I am safe. Family emergency. Had to leave town suddenly. I am sorry I worried you. I will explain everything when I can." It felt like a lie and the truth simultaneously. Sophia's response came immediately. "Sophia, this is sketchy as hell, but okay. Call me when you can actually talk." I set the phone down and moved to those massive windows, staring out at the city below. People were moving through their normal lives, going to work, meeting friends, living without armed guards, and death threats. I wanted that life back. Did I not? Dante returned as the sun was setting, painting the city in shades of amber and gold. I heard the elevator and the low murmur of voices. Katya was greeting him, and then his footsteps approached the living room where I sat, curled on the sofa, pretending to read. "Elena." His voice was softer than I expected. "How was your day?" I set down the book I had not actually been reading. "Trapped. Boring. Terrifying. Pick one." Dante's smile was slight as he shed his jacket, draping it over a chair. He had loosened his tie and rolled his sleeves to his elbows. The casual domesticity of it did strange things to my pulse. "Katya said you asked about me?" "I asked what you do." She gave me a very diplomatic non-answer. "Good. That is what I pay her for." He moved to the bar cart, pouring that amber whiskey. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." Dante turned to face me, glass in hand. "I run an organization. We handle problems that the law cannot or will not address. We protect people from predators like Kozlov. And yes, sometimes that protection requires violence. So, you are a vigilante. I am practical. He took a sip. The world is not black and white, Elena. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something worse. And you are worse? His eyes met mine. When I need to be. The honesty was brutal and seductive. I spoke to my contact in Kozlov's organization today. Dante continued, moving to stand by the windows. He is demanding a meeting. He wants to negotiate. My heart kicked. That is good, right? If you can negotiate. It is a trap. Dante's voice was flat. Kozlov does not negotiate. He postures, then he strikes. He wants to see if I am serious about protecting you. See if there is a weakness he can exploit. And is there? Dante looked at me over his shoulder, and the intensity in his gaze made me shiver. Yes, you. The admission hung between us. Then why protect me? I stood, moving toward him without thinking. If I make you weak, if I am a liability. Because some things are worth the risk. He said it so simply, like it was obvious. You do not know me, I whispered. I know enough. Dante turned fully to face me. I know you volunteer at the library near your apartment every Saturday. I know you eat the same lunch 4 days a week, because you are careful with money. I know you talk to your plants and cry at commercials and you are afraid of storms, but you pretend not to be. Each word hit like a revelation. An invasion. That is not knowing someone, I said, but my voice shook. That is surveillance. It is both. He stepped closer. I have watched you for 3 months, Elena. Watched you live your quiet, careful life. Watched you be kind to people who do not deserve it. Watched you smile at strangers and help old women with their groceries. And... He stopped, his jaw clenching. You are good. Genuinely good. And that is rare in my world. So, I am what? A pet? A curiosity? You are mine. There it was again. That claiming. Stop saying that. But I did not step back. I am not property. No. Dante's hand came up to cut my face, and this time I leaned into the touch. You are so much more than that. You are the first thing I have wanted for myself in 10 years. The first thing that makes me think about something other than survival and strategy and blood. His thumb traced my cheekbone and my breath caught. I scare you, he murmured. Yes, good. You should be scared. Because I meant what I said, Elena. You are mine now, and I protect what is mine with everything I have. Even if I do not want to be protected, even then, it should have been a threat. Instead, it felt like a promise. What if I want to leave? I whispered. Don's expression did not change. Then I will let you go. Put you on a plane to anywhere in the world you want. Give you enough money to start over. And then I will spend every day afterward wondering if Kozlov found you. Wondering if you are scared. If you are hurt. Or if I should have locked you in this apartment and refused to let you make that choice. That is not fair. No, but it is honest. I stared up at him. At this impossible man who had upended my entire life. And felt something shift inside me. Fear. Yes. But also something else. Trust. I did not understand it. I did not want to examine it too closely. But it was there. I need time. I said finally. Time to process all of this. Time to figure out what I want. You have time. Dante's hand dropped from my face, leaving a cold emptiness behind. But Elena? Yes. Do not take too long. Kozlov will not wait forever, and neither will I. That night, I lay in the massive bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of the city below. Somewhere in this penthouse, Dante was sleeping or working, or doing whatever dangerous men did in the dark hours. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I was wondering what it would feel like to surrender, to let this man, this stranger who knew me better than I knew myself, take control, to stop fighting and just fall. The thought terrified me almost as much as the realization that part of me wanted to. 3 days passed in the gilded cage. 3 days of Dante leaving before I woke and returning after sunset. 3 days of Katya's quiet efficiency and gourmet meals I barely tasted. 3 days of staring out windows and feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. On the 4th day, I broke. I need to leave this apartment, I told Dante over dinner. It was the first meal we had shared since I arrived, even just for an hour. A walk, coffee, something. He set down his fork with deliberate precision. Too dangerous. I will go insane if I stay here any longer. Better insane than dead. The casual delivery made me want to throw something. You cannot keep me locked up forever, I said, my voice rising. This is not protection. It is imprisonment. It is both. Dante's expression did not change. And it is temporary. How temporary? You said weeks, possibly months. That is not temporary. It is necessary. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the hardwood. I did not ask for any of this. I did not ask for my father's debts or your protection or... My voice cracked. I just want my life back. Something flickered across Dante's face. It was not quite sympathy, but it was close. Your life disappeared the moment your father signed that contract, he said quietly. I am trying to give you a new one. I do not want a new one. I want to go back to your studio apartment and your 60-hour work weeks and your careful, small existence. He stood, moving around the table. That life was an illusion, Elena. You were already being hunted, already marked. You just did not know it yet. The truth of it hit like a slap. Then what am I supposed to do? I whispered. Just accept this? Accept you? Dante's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he just looked at me. He really looked, as if he were seeing past my anger to the fear beneath. Then he did something unexpected. He compromised. Tomorrow night, he said, I am attending a charity gala at the plaza. You will come with me. My breath caught. You just said it is too dangerous. It is controlled danger. Hundreds of witnesses. Security everywhere. Kozlov will not risk a public spectacle. Dante's hand came up to cut my cheek. You need this. I understand that. So, we will go. But you stay by my side the entire time. No wandering. No bathroom trips alone. Agreed? It was barely freedom, but it was something. Agreed. The next evening, Katya arrived with a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. It was emerald silk that hugged my curves before flowing to the floor. The neckline was modest but devastating, the fabric whispering against my skin like a secret. Mr. Dante selected it himself, Katya said with a knowing smile as she helped with my hair. She styled it in loose waves that fell past my shoulders. It was elegant without being formal. I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked sophisticated and expensive, like she belonged on Dante's arm. The gala was exactly what I expected. Manhattan's elite in their finest, champagne flowing, a string quartet playing something classical and vaguely melancholy. But it was the man beside me who stole my breath. Dante in a tuxedo was devastating. He was all sharp lines and restrained power, his dark hair perfect, his presence commanding every room he entered. And the way he looked at me, possessive, proud and hungry, made my skin feel too tight. His hand never left the small of my back as we moved through the crowd. It was not controlling, but constant. A reminder. You are mine. People noticed. Of course they noticed. I saw the speculative glances, the whispered conversations behind champagne flutes. Women looked at me with envy or pity, I could not tell which. Men looked at Dante with fear barely concealed behind polite smiles. Who are all these people? I whispered as we approached a group near the silent auction tables. Politicians, businessmen, people who think power comes from money and connections. Dante's voice was low, meant only for me. They are wrong. What does power come from? He looked down at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Fear, loyalty, the willingness to do what others will not. Before I could respond, a man approached. He was silver-haired, in an expensive suit, with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Dunt, I did not expect to see you here. The words were friendly. The tone was not. Councilman Burke. Dante's voice cooled. Still pretending to serve the public interest? Burke's smile tightened. And still making accusations you cannot prove? His eyes slid to me. Who is your lovely companion? Dante's hand on my back pressed slightly firmer. None of your concern. The dismissal was absolute. Burke's face reddened, but he retreated with a stiff nod. What was that about? I asked. Burke takes money from Kozlov. He helps smooth over police investigations. He is part of the reason your father's debt was allowed to continue unchallenged. Dante guided me toward the bar. He is also the reason I cannot simply eliminate Kozlov without significant political fallout. The casual mention of elimination should have bothered me more than it did. This world you live in, I said quietly, it is complicated. It is necessary. Dante ordered 2 glasses of champagne, then turned to face me fully. The law does not work, Elena. It is too slow, too corrupted. Sometimes the only justice is the kind you make yourself. I wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way. But standing in a room full of people who turned blind eyes to suffering for profit, I was not sure I could. We danced. I do not know who suggested it. Maybe no one did. Maybe Dante just pulled me onto the floor because he could. Because his hand belonged on my waist, and his eyes belonged on my face. The quartet played something slow and aching. You are good at this, I said as he moved us through the other couples with easy grace. I was taught young. My mother believed in old-fashioned skills. Something pained crossed his face. She has been gone 15 years. It was the first personal thing he had shared. A crack in the armor. I am sorry. Do not be. She died knowing I would survive. That is all she wanted. I wanted to ask more about her, about his childhood, about how a boy becomes a man like this, but the moment felt too fragile. Instead, I let him hold me. I let myself feel safe in the circle of his arms, surrounded by strangers who would destroy me without a second thought if they knew who I was. Dante's hand slid from my waist to the small of my back, pulling me fractionally closer. It was not inappropriate, but it was intimate. You are beautiful tonight, he murmured against my hair. My breath caught. You clean up nice yourself. His chest vibrated with quiet laughter. It was the first time I had heard him genuinely amused. I meant what I said. Elena, that first night. You are the first thing I have wanted for myself in a decade. His hand tightened on mine. I do not know if that makes me selfish or human, but it is true. I looked up at him, at this impossible man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. What do you want from me? I whispered. Everything. No hesitation. But I will take what you are willing to give. The honesty was devastating. I do not know what I can give you. Then we will figure it out together. The music swelled. The world narrowed to just us, spinning slowly in the center of a room full of people who did not matter. And for the first time since that night at the gallery, I felt something other than fear. I felt possibility. We left the gala early. Dante cited business, though I suspected he just wanted me away from curious eyes. In the SUV, his hand found mine in the darkness, interlaced our fingers together. Neither of us spoke. But when we reached the penthouse and he walked me to my bedroom door, he paused. Thank you, he said quietly, for coming tonight, for trusting me. I do not trust you. But my hand was still in his. Not yet. Dante lifted our joined hands, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that felt like a brand. But you will. He released me and stepped back, and I felt the loss like cold water. Good night, Elena. Good night. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart racing, my skin burning where his lips had touched. This was dangerous. More dangerous than Koslov. More dangerous than contracts and debts and death threats. Because I was starting to want this. Want him. And that terrified me more than anything else. I woke to shouting. Male voices, harsh and urgent, coming from somewhere in the penthouse. I grabbed the robe Katya had left and stumbled into the hallway, my heart hammering. The argument was happening in Dante's study. The door was half open, light spilling out. You cannot keep her here indefinitely. A man's voice I did not recognize shouted. Kozlov is getting impatient. He is threatening to go public with the debt, ruin her reputation, make her unhireable. Let him try. Dante's voice was ice. I will bury him before the story goes live. You are not thinking clearly. She has made you vulnerable. I know exactly what she has made me. I should have walked away. Should have given them privacy. Instead, I pushed the door open. 3 men stood in the study. Dante was behind his desk, and there were 2 others I had never seen. One was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and expensive clothes. The other was older, graying, with the build of someone who had survived violence. All 3 turned to look at me. Elena. Dante's expression softened fractionally. You should not be up. I heard shouting. I pulled the robe tighter. What is happening? The younger man exchanged a look with Dante. We were just discussing strategy. About me. Not a question. Dante's jaw tightened, but he did not deny it. These are my associates, he said instead. Marco. The younger man nodded. And Vincent. They help manage various operations. We are trying to convince your boyfriend that hiding you forever is not a viable long-term strategy, Marco said bluntly, earning a sharp look from Dante. He is not my boyfriend. The words felt like lies. Then what is he? Vincent asked, not unkindly. I looked at Dante. He looked back, his expression unreadable. I do not know, I admitted. Marco Sihil. Look, Miss Moretti. We are trying to protect you. But Koslov is escalating. Yesterday, he sent a message to Dante. A photograph of you at the gala. Close-up. Professional quality. Which means he had someone inside that room. Someone close enough to get that shot. My blood went cold. Koslov is testing boundaries, Vincent added, seeing how far he can push before Dante snaps. And when Dante does snap, because he will, it will start a war neither organization can afford. So, what is the alternative? My voice was smaller than I wanted. I just give myself up? Let Koslov have me? No. Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. That is not an option. Then what is? Marco challenged. Because right now you are playing defense, and defense does not win wars. Dante moved around the desk, coming to stand beside me. His presence was solid and grounding. The alternative? He said quietly. is we change the narrative. We make Koslov's debt irrelevant. How? Vincent asked. Dante looked at me, and something passed across his face. Calculation mixed with something deeper. Something almost vulnerable. We get married. The room went silent. Excuse me? My voice cracked. If you are my wife, you are under my protection legally and internationally. Any move against you is a move against my entire organization. Kozlov gives us time and leverage. Marco whistled low. That is actually not a terrible idea. That is insane, I countered. We barely know each other. We know enough. Dante's hand found mine. It would be temporary. A legal arrangement. Paperwork and witnesses. Nothing more. Marriage is never nothing more. In my world, it is. His thumb traced my knuckles. But it would keep you alive. It would give me the legal right to move against Koslov without political fallout. It would solve both our problems. Vincent was nodding slowly. Koslov is traditional. Old school bratva. He respects marriage. He would not cross that line easily. This is crazy, I whispered. But I did not pull my hand away. Crazy is letting you die because I cannot think of a better solution. Dante's voice was rough. Crazy is watching Koslov corner you slowly while I sit here powerless. This is strategy. And what happens after? I asked. After Koslov is dealt with, we dissolve the marriage. You get your life back. I get my peace of mind knowing you are safe. It should have sounded clinical and transactional. Instead, it sounded like heartbreak. Marco cleared his throat. I will make some calls. Get the paperwork started. We can have a private ceremony within 48 hours if we push. Do it, Dante said, not taking his eyes off me. Marco and Vincent filed out, leaving us alone in the study. You cannot just decide this, I said. But the protest felt weak. I am not deciding. I am offering. Dante stepped closer, cupping my face with both hands. You want your life back. I want you alive. This accomplishes both. But if you say no, if you cannot do this, I will find another way, even if it means letting you go. You said you would not let me go. I lead. His smile was bitter. I would let you go if it meant you survived, even if it destroyed me. The confession stole my breath. Why? I whispered. Why do you care this much? Because I have spent 10 years building walls, Elena. Being the thing people fear. Living in darkness because that is where I am useful. His thumb traced my cheekbone. And then I saw you, laughing at something on a page, looking like light made flesh. And for the first time in a decade, I wanted something other than survival. Tears burned my eyes. That is not fair. No, but it is true. I should have said no. I should have run. I should have chosen freedom over this impossible, dangerous man. Instead, I said, 48 hours. Hope flickered across Dante's face. 48 hours. We sign papers. You wear a ring, and I use every resource I have to end this threat permanently. And then you decide. If you want to stay, if you want to go, if you want. He stopped, his jaw clenching. If you want anything more than a legal arrangement. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. Every logical part of my brain was screaming that this was madness. But the illogical part, the part that had felt recognition at that gallery, that had leaned into his touch, that had danced with him and felt safe. That part was whispering something different. Okay, I breathed. Okay, I will do it. Dante's eyes closed briefly, as if I had just granted him a reprieve from execution. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. I pulled back, wrapping my arms around myself. We do not know if this will work. If Kozlov will respect it, it will work. Absolute certainty. Because I will make it work. The next 2 days were a blur. Paperwork appeared. Lawyers I never to examine. Katya arrived with another dress. It was simpler than the gala gown, but elegant, made of cream, lace, and silk. It was beautiful without being bridal. It is not a real wedding, I told her as she pinned my hair. Katya met my eyes in the mirror. Is it not? I did not have an answer. The ceremony happened in Dante's penthouse. It was just Marco and Vincent as witnesses, and an officiant who asked no questions and accepted a cash payment. Dante wore black. Of course he did. I wore cream and carried a single white rose that someone, probably Katya, had left on my dresser. The words were standard, legal, and impersonal. But when Dante slid the ring onto my finger, white gold, simple and elegant, his hand shook just slightly, just enough that I noticed. You may kiss the bride. Dante looked at me, a question in his eyes. I nodded. His kiss was gentle and reverent. It was nothing like the claiming I had expected. It was just his lips on mine, soft and careful, like I was something precious. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Thank you, he whispered, so quiet only I could hear. For trusting me. Do not make me regret it. I will not. It felt like a vow more binding than anything the officiant had said. That night, I stood in my bedroom, now legally married to a man I had known less than 2 weeks, and stared at the ring on my finger. Mrs. Elena Dante. No. He had never told me his last name. I was Mrs. Elena. What? I laughed, slightly hysterical. A knock came at the door. Come in. Dante entered. He was still wearing his suit pants and white shirt, his tie discarded. He looked younger like this, more human. I wanted to check on you. He stopped in the doorway, maintaining a careful distance. Make sure you are okay. I married a man whose last name I do not even know. A slight smile. Caruso. Dante Caruso. Mrs. Caruso. I tested the words. They felt foreign. That is going to take getting used to. You do not have to use it. Not really. This is just paperwork. But the way he said it, as if the words hurt, told me he wanted it to be more. Elena, you should rest. He stepped back. Tomorrow we send word to Kozlov. Let him know the situation has changed. Let him decide his next move. And if he does not care, if he comes anyway, Dante's expression hardened. Then I will show him exactly why people fear my name. Kozlov's response came 3 days later. I was reading in the library when Dante found me, his face carved from stone. He wants a meeting tonight. Neutral ground. My book fell from numb fingers. What did you say? I said yes. Dante moved to the window, hands in his pockets. It is what we have been waiting for. A chance to negotiate face to face. Or a chance for him to kill you. Possibly. So casual. But I will have Marco and Vincent, armed security, and I will be prepared. Then I am coming with you. Absolutely not. I stood, crossing to him. I am the reason for this meeting. I should be there. You are the reason I cannot afford distractions. Dante turned, cupping my face. If you are there, all I will think about is keeping you safe. I need to be focused and cold. I cannot be those things if I am worried about you. So, I just wait here? Wonder if you are coming back? His jaw tightened. Yes. That is not fair. No. But it is necessary. We stared at each other, wills clashing silently. Finally, I looked away. Fine. But Dante? Yes. Come back to me. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise mixed with something deeper. Always, he promised. He left at 8 o'clock. I watched from the window as the SUV pulled away. Dante's dark form was visible in the back seat, with Marco and Vincent in a second vehicle behind. Then they were gone, swallowed by Manhattan traffic. Katya brought tea I did not drink. She offered dinner I could not eat. Finally, she left me alone in the living room as the city lights blazed outside. Hours crawled past. 9, 10, 11. My phone stayed silent. At midnight, I started pacing, every worst-case scenario playing on loop. Kozlov betraying the truce. Dante bleeding out in some warehouse. Me trapped in this penthouse forever, waiting for news that would never come. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard the elevator. I ran. Dante stepped out and my heart stopped. There was blood on his white shirt, split knuckles, and a cut above his eyebrow. But he was alive. Oh God. I rushed forward, my hands hovering over the blood, afraid to touch. What happened? Are you? It is not mine. His voice was rough and exhausted. Most of it, anyway. Most? Kozlov brought twice the agreed security. Things got tense. Dante caught my hands. But he agreed to a settlement. You are free, Elena. The debt is cleared. The words did not register immediately. Free? A tired smile. It cost me a significant amount of money and 3 territory concessions. But it is done. He will sign the paperwork tomorrow. You are safe. I should have felt relieved, ecstatic. Instead, I felt hollow. So, I can leave? Not a question. Dante's smile faded. Yes. If that is what you want. And the marriage? We will have it annulled quietly. You will get a settlement. Enough to start over wherever you want. He had thought of everything. He had planned for every contingency. Except the one where I did not want to leave. What if... I stopped, the words catching in my throat. What if what? Dante asked gently. What if I do not want an annulment? The silence that followed was deafening. Dante stared at me, as if I had spoken a foreign language. Elena, I know this started as strategy, as protection. But these past 2 weeks, I forced myself to meet his eyes. I have seen you, Dante. Not just the dangerous parts, but the gentle parts, too. The way you look at me. The way you have never once forced anything. The way you... Do not. His voice was strained. Do not say things you do not mean just because you are grateful. I am not grateful. I am terrified. The confession burst out. I am terrified because I came here expecting a monster and found a man. A man who makes me feel safe and seen and wanted in a way I have never. Dante's mouth was on mine before I could finish. It was not gentle like our wedding kiss. It was desperate and hungry, his hands cupping my face as if I might disappear, his body pressing mine back against the wall behind me. I gasped against his lips, and he took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue sliding against mine in a way that made my knees weak. This was claiming, this was possession, this was everything I had feared and wanted in equal measure. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. I tried, Dante said roughly, his forehead pressed to mine. Tried to keep distance. Tried to make this just business. But Elena, every day you have been here has been torture. Watching you, wanting you, knowing I had no right. You have a right. My hands fisted in his shirt. I am your wife on paper. Does it feel like paper to you? His eyes darkened. No. Then stop treating me like I am made of glass. I pulled him closer, bolder than I had ever been. I am here. I am choosing this. I am choosing you. You do not know what you are choosing. Then show me. For a long moment Dante just looked at me, searching for doubt, for hesitation. I gave him none. Are you sure? His voice was barely above a whisper. I answered by kissing him. This time, I was the one who pressed forward, who opened my mouth beneath his, who let my hands slide up his chest to wrap around his neck. Dante made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and a prayer, and lifted me. I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively as he carried me down the hallway, not to my bedroom, to his. The room was dark and masculine. A massive bed dominated the space, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Dante set me down gently at the edge of the bed, then stepped back. If you want to stop, I do not. But my hands were shaking as I reached for the buttons of my shirt. He caught my hands. Let me. His fingers were steady as he undid each button with devastating slowness. It was reverent, like unwrapping something sacred. When the shirt fell away, he traced the edge of my bra strap with one finger. His eyes locked on mine. Beautiful, he murmured. I knew you would be. I kissed him to stop the words, suddenly shy despite my boldness moments before. Dante smiled against my mouth. Nervous? Yes. Good. So am I. That surprised me. You think I do this often? Bring women to my bedroom? Let them see the parts of me I keep hidden? He cupped my face. You are the first, Elena. The only one I have wanted this with in longer than I can remember. The confession made me brave. I reached for his shirt, undoing buttons with clumsy fingers. He let me. He stood still as I pushed the fabric off his shoulders and revealed the body beneath. There were scars. So many scars. Pale lines crisscrossed his chest and his abdomen. Evidence of violence survived. I traced one with my fingertip. Does it hurt? Not anymore. He caught my hand, pressing it flat over his heart. This hurts more. This wanting you. This knowing I could lose you the moment you realize who I really am. I know who you are. You know what I have shown you. Then show me more. Dante's eyes closed briefly, as if I had just given him permission for something he had been craving. When he opened them again, the control was gone. He lowered me back onto the bed, covering my body with his own. He was careful to keep his weight off me, yet stayed close. I could feel the heat of his skin through the thin fabric of my bra. Tell me if you want to stop, he said against my throat. I will not. His mouth traced the line of my neck, my collarbone, and the swell of my breast above the lace. Each touch was reverent and restrained, as if he were memorizing me. Dante. My voice came out breathy and needy. I know. His hand slid down my side, tracing my waist and my hip. I know, Elena, but I am not rushing this. I have waited too long to not savor every moment. He unclasped my bra with practiced ease, drawing it away slowly. Then he just looked at me. Perfect, he breathed. I wanted to cover myself, wanted to hide from the intensity of his gaze. But the way he looked at me, as if I were something precious, something his, made me brave instead. I reached for him, pulling him down into another kiss as his hand cupped my breast, his thumb brushing over the peak in a way that made me gasp. Sensitive, he noted with satisfaction. I could not form words. I could only arch into his touch, my body speaking a language my mind could not articulate. Dante's mouth replaced his hand, and I cried out at the sensation. It was hot and wet and perfect. That is it, he murmured against my skin. Let me hear you, Elena. Let me know what you like. What I liked was everything. His mouth, his hands, the weight of him against me, and the way he touched me as if I were something to be worshipped. When his hand slid beneath the waistband of my pants, I tensed. He froze immediately. Too much? No, just. I swallowed hard. I have not. I have, but not. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Not in a long time? I nodded, embarrassed. Then we will go slow. He kissed me softly. And you will tell me if anything does not feel right. Promise me. I promise. His hand continued its journey, sliding beneath the fabric until he found heat and wetness and me, trembling beneath his touch. God, Elena. His voice was strained. You are. I kissed him before he could finish, too overwhelmed to hear whatever devastating thing he was about to say. His fingers moved in slow circles, building pressure and heat until I was gasping against his mouth, my hips moving instinctively. That is it, he encouraged. Take what you need. The permission shattered something inside me. I came apart in his arms, crying out his name, clutching his shoulders as waves of pleasure crashed over me. When I came back to myself, Dante was watching me with an expression so tender it made my chest ache. Beautiful, he whispered, pressing a kiss to my forehead. You are so beautiful, when you let go. I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell him this meant something, that he meant something, but exhaustion pulled at me, and before I could form the words, I was drifting. The last thing I felt was Dante pulling the blankets over me, his body curving around mine like a shield. The last thing I heard was his voice, barely a whisper. I love you, Elena. God help me. I love you. I woke to an empty bed and the sound of shouting. For one disoriented moment, I thought it was a dream. Then reality crashed back. Last night, Dante's touch. His whispered confession. He thought I had not heard. The shouting got louder. I grabbed Dante's shirt from the floor, pulling it on as I stumbled into the hallway, my heart hammering. Voices were coming from the living room, angry and urgent. I should have known he would betray the agreement. Not now, Marco. She needs to know. I rounded the corner to find Dante, Marco, and Vincent in a tense formation near the windows. Dante was on the phone, his face carved from granite. All three turned when I entered. Elena. Dante ended the call. Go back to the bedroom. What is happening? Nothing you need to worry about. Kozlov broke the agreement, Marco said bluntly, ignoring Dante's sharp look. The paperwork he signed yesterday was forged. He is claiming the debt still stands, and demanding Elena be turned over by midnight tonight, or he will declare open war. The floor tilted. What? I looked at Dante. But you said... I know what I said. His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. I was wrong. Kozlov played us. He used the meeting to learn our weaknesses and our security protocols. The money I paid him is already distributed to his men as bonuses. He never intended to honor the agreement. Vincent moved to stand by the window, scanning the street below. We have maybe 6 hours before he makes his move. We need to relocate her somewhere he cannot reach. No. Dante's voice was absolute. We are done running. You cannot seriously be considering. I am not considering anything. Dante's eyes met mine across the room. I am ending this tonight. Marco swore. That is suicide. Even with our full organization, Kozlov has double the manpower. You cannot. Watch me. The cold certainty in his voice made my blood freeze. Dante. No. I crossed to him, grabbing his arm. You cannot just. There has to be another way. There isn't. He cupped my face gently, the tenderness at odds with the violence in his eyes. I should have done this from the start. I should not have tried to negotiate with a man who only understands bloodshed. You will be killed, possibly, but I will take him with me, and then you will be safe. I do not want to be safe. The words burst out louder than intended. Not if it costs your life. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Elena, I heard you last night. What you said when you thought I was asleep. My voice cracked. And I feel it too. I do not understand it. I do not know if it is real or just trauma bonding or... He kissed me hard and claiming. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. It is real, he said roughly. And that is why I am ending this. Because I cannot. I will not live in a world where you are always in danger, where men like Kozlov think they can own you. So yes, I am going to war. And yes, I might die. But you will be free, Elena. Truly free. What if I do not want freedom without you? Marco cleared his throat. We will give you 2 a minute. He and Vincent retreated, leaving us alone in the devastated morning light. You do not mean that, Dante said quietly. Yes, I do. I gripped his shirt. I know this is insane. I know we barely know each other. But last night, I swallowed hard. Last night felt like the first honest thing I have done in years. And I am not ready to give that up. You might not have a choice. Then let me help. Let me be part of this. Absolutely not. Dante's voice was firm. You are the one good thing in my life, Elena. The one pure thing. I am not dragging you into bloodshed. You already did. The moment you grabbed Marcus's wrist, the moment you decided I was yours, I forced him to look at me. So stop trying to protect me from choices I have already made. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then something broke behind his eyes. "If I do this," he said slowly, "if I bring you into this fight, you stay with Marco and Vincent. You do not engage. You do not put yourself at risk. Agreed?" It was not what I wanted, but it was something. Agreed. The warehouse was in Brooklyn. It was neutral territory, or as neutral as anything could be in a war between crime families. Dante had called in reinforcements. 15 men I had never seen, all armed, all wearing the same expression of cold readiness. I sat in the back of an armored SUV with Marco, watching through tinted windows as Dante gave orders. He had changed into tactical gear, black and utilitarian, but he still moved with that same predatory grace. "He is good at this," Marco said quietly. "Leadership, strategy. Most bosses just bark orders. Dante makes people want to follow him." "How long have you worked for him?" 6 years. "He saved my sister from a trafficking ring." Marco's voice was matter-of-fact. "Killed 8 men to get her out. Did not ask for anything in return. So when he offered me a job, I said yes." I watched Dante through the window. This man who had killed for strangers, who had upended his entire life to protect me. "He really loves you. You know," Marco added. "I have never seen him like this. Reckless. Emotional. It is terrifying." "I am sorry." "Do not be." Marco smiled slightly. "Humanity looks good on him." A knock on the window made me jump. It was Vincent, gesturing for Marco to step out. They spoke in low tones I could not hear. Then Marco was back, his expression grim. "Kozlov is here early." My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means he is confident. Thinks he has already won. Marco checked his weapon. "Stay in the car. No matter what happens, Vincent will stay with you." But Marco was already gone, moving to join Dante's formation. Vincent slid into the driver's seat, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. "It will be okay, Mrs. Caruso." I wanted to believe him. Through the window, I watched Kozlov arrive with his own convoy. A dozen SUVs, maybe 30 men. We were outnumbered. The two groups faced each other across the empty warehouse floor like armies at dawn. Dante stepped forward. So did Kozlov. He was older, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. They spoke. They were too far away for me to hear. Then Kozlov laughed and pulled a gun. "No." I lunged forward, but Vincent caught my arm. "Do not!" On the warehouse floor, chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouts. Bodies moving with lethal precision. I could not breathe. Could not think. I could only watch in horror as Dante moved through the violence like a dancer. Disarming one man, shooting another, moving with a grace that was terrible and beautiful. But there were so many of them. A man got past Dante's guard, a knife flashing. I screamed. Dante turned, but too slow. Marco appeared from nowhere, taking the knife meant for Dante's back. He went down hard. "No!" Dante's roar of fury was audible even through the car windows. What happened next was brutal. Dante became something else. Something beyond human. He moved through Kozlov's men like an avenging angel. Each movement was precise, lethal, and unstoppable. I watched, my hands pressed to the window, unable to look away. When the dust settled, and the gunpowder haze was hanging in the air, Kozlov was on his knees. Dante stood over him, a gun pressed to the Russian's temple. They spoke briefly, a final exchange. Then Dante pulled the trigger. The ride back was silent. Marco was alive, barely. Medics were handling him at a private facility Dante owned. The wound was serious but survivable. Kozlov was dead, and his organization was in shambles. The war was over. But Dante sat across from me in the SUV with blood on his hands, literal blood, and said nothing. When we reached the penthouse, he started to walk past me toward his study. I caught his arm. "Do not." My voice cracked. "Do not shut me out. Not after everything. You saw what I am, Elena." His voice was hollow. "What I am capable of. You should be running." "I am not running." I turned him to face me. "I am staying because I meant what I said. I love you." His eyes closed, as if the words caused pain. "You love an idea of me, not. I love the man who held me gently while planning violence. I love the man who killed for his friend, who built something terrifying and good simultaneously." I cupped his blood-stained hand. "I love all of it, Dante. The darkness and the light." When he opened his eyes, they were wet. "I do not deserve you." "Probably not." I smiled through tears. "But you have me anyway." He kissed me then, desperate, broken, and whole. And I kissed him back, tasting salt and copper and love. 3 weeks after Kozlov's death, I stood in the penthouse bedroom, our bedroom, now packing a suitcase. Not to leave, but to go home, or what used to be home. Dante leaned against the doorframe, watching with an expression I could not quite read. "You do not have to do this." he said quietly. I do. I folded another shirt. I have been gone almost 2 months. My landlord thinks I am dead. My boss has probably filled my position. I need to close that chapter properly. I could have someone handle it. I know, but I need to do it myself. He nodded slowly. I will come with you. You do not have to. Dante. He moved into the room, catching my hand. I let you out of my sight for 3 hours last week to have coffee with Sophia, and I nearly had a panic attack. You think I am letting you go back to Brooklyn alone? Despite everything, I smiled. Overprotective much? Unapologetically. He pressed a kiss to my knuckles. You are stuck with me now, Mrs. Caruso. The name still felt surreal, but good. We had made it legal. Really legal. Not just paperwork for protection. We had a quiet ceremony 2 weeks ago with just Marco, who was recovering and grumpy about his stitches, and Vincent as witnesses. Katya had cried. I had cried. Dante had looked at me as if I had just given him the world. My studio apartment looked smaller than I remembered. Dust covered everything. Mail was piled up behind the door. Mostly bills and junk. The plants I talked to were brown and dead. Evidence of a life interrupted. Dante stood in the center of the tiny space, looking impossibly out of place among my thrift store furniture and clearance rack decorations. This is where you lived? There was no judgment in his voice. Just curiosity. This is where I survived, I corrected, running my hand along the kitchen counter. There is a difference. I started sorting through belongings. What to keep, what to donate, what to throw away. Most of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. That careful, quiet girl who had lived here, who had measured every decision, who had never taken risks, and who had been so damn small. She was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized. Someone married to a dangerous man. Someone who had watched violence and chosen love anyway. Someone brave. What are you thinking? Dante asked, coming to stand behind me. That I do not know who I am anymore. I turned to face him, and that maybe that is okay. His hand cupped my cheek. You are still you, Elena. Just more. Louder. Braver. Or maybe just crazier. I leaned into his touch. Normal people do not fall in love with mafia bosses. Good thing you are not normal then. We boxed up the essentials. Photos, books, and a few sentimental items. The rest I would donate or leave for the next tenant. As I was taping up the final box, my phone rang. Sophia, I answered with trepidation. Hey yourself, stranger. Sophia's voice was sharp. You have 30 seconds to explain why you have been dodging my calls for a month, or I am showing up at whatever address you are hiding at with wine and a crowbar. It is complicated. It is always complicated with you lately. Ever since that gallery opening. Ever since that guy. She paused. That is what this is about, isn't it? The man who grabbed Marcus's wrist. You are with him. No point in denying it. Yes. Elena. What the hell? I did some research after he disappeared. Dante Caruso. He is. I know what he is. And you are still. I married him. Silence. Long and loaded. You what? I see hid. Can we do this in person? I promise I will explain everything. Just trust me, please. Another pause. Fine. But this explanation better be good, and include details about what he is like in. Sophia. She laughed. Fine, fina. But seriously, babe, you okay? I looked at Dante, who was pretending not to listen, while very obviously listening. Yeah, I said softly. I am actually really okay. Then I am happy for you. Terrified, but happy. Dinner next week? Definitely. I hung up to find Dante smiling slightly. She sounds protective. She is. You will like her. I pocketed my phone. And she will probably threaten to kill you if you hurt me. Good. You should have people willing to kill for you. Only Dante would say something like that and mean it as a compliment. We left the apartment at sunset. The boxes were loaded into the SUV. Vincent drove. It was always Vincent, our silent guardian, while Dante and I sat in the back. Regrets? Dante asked as we crossed back into Manhattan. I thought about it. Really thought? No, I said finally. My life before was safe and predictable, but it was not living. Not really. And now? Now I am terrified most days. Never sure what is coming next. Married to a man with enemies and blood on his hands. I interlaced my fingers through his. But I have never felt more alive. Dante lifted our joined hands, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. I do not know what I did to deserve you, he murmured. You grabbed a man's wrist and said, that is the last time. I smiled at the memory. And you meant it. You meant it so completely that you upended both our lives to keep me safe. I would do it again. I know. We rode in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights blur past. Elena, if you ever want to go back to that quiet life, that safety, Tell me. I will find a way. I will. Dante. I turned to face him fully. I chose you. Not just once, but every day. I choose you. The danger, the darkness, all of it. Because you are worth it. His eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you, he said roughly. More than I have words for. I love you too. I leaned in, kissing him softly. My dangerous, impossible man. He smiled against my lips. Your husband? Yes, that too. Back at the penthouse, we carried boxes up together, despite Dante's insistence that he could have someone do it. As I unpacked books onto the shelf that was now our shelf, in the home that was now our home, something settled in my chest. Peace, not the absence of danger. Dante's world would always carry risk and shadows, but there was peace in knowing I had chosen this. I had chosen him. I had chosen to be brave instead of safe. Marco stopped by later that evening. He was moving gingerly, but healing well. He took one look at my boxes scattered around the living room and grinned. Welcome home, Mrs. Caruso. The name still made my heart flutter. Thanks, Marco. Fair warning. Dante is already talking about getting you a security detail for when he is not around. Vincent and I drew straws. I lost. I laughed. I do not need a babysitter. Tell that to your husband. He is convinced you are going to get kidnapped every time you leave the building. He is not wrong to worry, Dante said, emerging from his study. Elena has a talent for attracting danger. I do not. You married me. That is literally courting danger. But he was smiling. Marco excused himself, citing physical therapy, and Dante pulled me into his arms. Happy? He asked. I looked around the penthouse at my books on his shelves, my clothes in his closet, and my life tangled irrevocably with his. Yeah, I said. I really am. Good. He kissed my forehead. Because you are stuck with me now. I thought we established that already. It bears repeating. His hand slid to my waist, his thumb tracing patterns through my shirt. Every day for the rest of our lives, if necessary. I pulled back to look at him. The rest of our lives? That is a long time. Not nearly long enough, Dante murmured. And when he kissed me, deep and slow and full of promise, I believed him. 6 months later, we were in one of Dante's upscale Italian restaurants in Midtown. It was the kind of place where politicians and businessmen brokered deals over wine that cost more than my old monthly rent. I sat in the back office reviewing financial reports, my stylus moving across the tablet as I flagged discrepancies. It turned out I was good at this. The business side of Dante's operations, the legitimate side, anyway. The restaurants, the real estate holdings, and the import company that was actually just an import company. I had quit my corporate job 3 months ago. Dante had offered me a position managing his legitimate businesses, and I had accepted, partially because I was good at it, partially because working together meant more time together, and partially because sitting at home under protective surveillance had been slowly driving me insane. A knock came at the door. Marco stuck his head in. Delivery for you. I looked up, confused. I did not order anything. Not that kind of delivery. He pushed the door open wider, and Sophia burst in. Surprise. I stood, laughing as she pulled me into a hug. What are you doing here? What? I cannot visit my best friend at her fancy new office. Sophia pulled back, looking around. Damn, Elena, you have upgraded. It is just a workspace. With Italian marble and art I cannot afford to look at. She grinned. I am happy for you. Terrified still, but happy. We had dinner several times over the past months. I had explained everything within reason. And Sophia had grudgingly accepted that, yes, I had married a dangerous man. And yes, I was actually happy. Where is the scary husband? She asked. Meeting. He will be back in an hour. I gestured to the leather sofa. Coffee? As I poured, Sophia studied me with those sharp artist's eyes. You look different, she said finally. Different how? Confident. Settled. She accepted the cup. Like you finally figured out who you are supposed to be. Or just who I want to be. I sat beside her. There is a difference. Either way, it is good. You were always so careful before. Like you were afraid to take up space. I was. The admission came easily now. I spent my whole life trying to be small, invisible, and safe. And now I am married to the most visible man in certain circles. Safety is not an option. So I might as well be brave instead. Sophia smiled. He is good for you, even if he is terrifying. He is not that terrifying, Sophia. Elena. He walked into the restaurant last month for our dinner and 3 men literally left their meals half-eaten to get away from him. Fair point. Okay. He is a little terrifying, I conceded. But not to me. That is love, babe. Sophia sipped her coffee. Or insanity. Sometimes it is hard to tell the difference. Dante returned an hour later as promised. He greeted Sophia with polite warmth, the dangerous edges carefully tucked away, but I saw how his hand found the small of my back immediately. I saw how his body angled toward mine, even while making conversation. Possessive, protective, and mine. After Sophia left, Dante pulled me into his lap in the office chair, burying his face in my neck. Long meeting? I asked, running my fingers through his hair. Tedious meeting. His breath was warm against my skin. Burke was there, still trying to position himself as an ally now that Kozlov is gone. And I do not trust him. Never will. Dante pulled back to look at me, but I smiled and played politics because that is what is required. You hate that part. I tolerate it for you. For this, he gestured vaguely at the office. The legitimate businesses. Building something that is not just blood and shadows. I cupped his face. You are allowed to want normal things, you know. Nothing about my life is normal. Especially not my wife. But he was smiling. Hey! He kissed the protest away and I melted into it. 6 months, and the heat between us had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. I have something to tell you, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. Not bad, just complicated. Dante pulled back. Seriously, you remember Kozlov's second command, Alexei Volkov, the one who disappeared after the warehouse? He did not disappear. He went underground to rebuild. Dante's jaw tightened. My sources say he is planning something. Retaliation for Kozlov's death. The peace I had felt shattered. So it is not over? It is never completely over, Elena. Dante's hand found mine. There will always be someone. Another threat. Another challenge. That is the world I live in. The world you married into. I should have been scared. I should have regretted every choice that led me here. Instead, I felt resolve. Then we deal with it, I said firmly. Together. You do not have to. Yes, I do. We are partners, Dante. In everything. That includes the dangerous parts. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Together, he agreed. But Elena, you stay out of the line of fire. That is non-negotiable. I can live with that. That night, we lay in bed, city lights painting patterns on the ceiling. Do you ever regret it? Dante asked into the darkness. Choosing this life? I thought about my answer. Really considered it. Sometimes I miss the simplicity, I admitted. I miss not checking for threats every time I leave the building. I miss not worrying about whether someone might use me to hurt you. But I do not miss who I was. That scared, small girl living half a life. I turned to face him. You woke something up in me, Dante. Something brave and reckless and alive. And I am not willing to go back to sleep just because it is safer. His hand found my face in the darkness, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. I do not deserve you. Stop saying that. It is true. No. I caught his hand, pressing it against my heart. You see the worst parts of yourself and think, that is all you are. But I see the man who saved Katya's family, who protected Marco's sister, who has built legitimate businesses that employ hundreds of people, who loves me so completely, it terrifies you. It does terrify me. The confession was raw. Loving you, knowing you could be taken from me, used against me. But I am selfish enough to keep you anyway. I smiled in the darkness. Good. Because I am not going anywhere. We lay in silence for a while. His heartbeat steady beneath my palm. Dunt? Whatever comes next, with Volkov or anyone else, we face it together. Promise me you will not try to protect me by shutting me out. His arm tightened around me. I promised to try. But Elena, if it comes down to your safety or keeping you informed, I am choosing safety every time. That is not non-negotiable. But his voice was gentle. You are the best thing in my life. I am not losing you. Not to Volkov. Not to anyone. I wanted to argue, to demand equal partnership in all things. But the fierce protectiveness in his voice stopped me. Because I felt it too. That same desperate need to keep him safe, even if it meant making impossible choices. Okay, I whispered finally. But you have to promise me something in return. Anything. If it comes down to choosing between your life and mine, you choose yours. Elena, promise me, don't you? Promise me you will not sacrifice yourself to save me because I cannot. My voice cracked. I cannot survive in a world without you anymore. His silence stretched long enough that I thought he might refuse. Then, I promise I will try to keep us both alive. It was not the answer I wanted, but it was honest. I had learned to value his honesty above everything else. I love you, I said into the darkness. I love you too. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. More than anything. More than is probably wise. Wisdom is overrated. His quiet laugh rumbled through his chest. You have corrupted me completely, Mrs. Caruso. Good. I snuggled closer. That was the plan all along. I fell asleep wrapped in his arms. I was safe in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new threats, but also new moments, new memories, and new reasons to be brave. Because this life, dangerous, unpredictable, and terrifying, was mine. It was ours, and I would not trade it for anything, not even the promise of safety, because some things were worth the risk. For this, Dante Caruso, my impossible, dangerous, beautiful man, he was worth everything. 3 years later, the nursery was painted soft gray with white accents. It was a compromise between my desire for color and Dante's insistence on sophistication. I stood at the window, my hand resting on my swollen belly, watching the sun set over Manhattan. Behind me, Dante was assembling a crib with Vincent's help. Or rather, he was arguing with Vincent about the correct way to assemble a crib. I'm telling you, that piece goes there. The instructions clearly state. Instructions are suggestions. I smiled, turning away from the window. Boys, if you break my daughter's crib, I am breaking you. All 3 men immediately settled down. Dante looked up from the scattered pieces, his hair disheveled. How are you feeling? Like I am smuggling a watermelon. I waddled over. There was no dignified way to describe pregnancy movement. But happy. His hand found my belly, pressing gently where our daughter was currently practicing her kickboxing routine. She is strong, he murmured. She is violent. Wonder where she gets that from. Marco snorted. Vincent coughed to cover a laugh. Dante just smiled. She will need to be strong. Being a Caruso comes with complications. That was an understatement. Volkov had been dealt with 2 years ago. Quietly, efficiently, and permanently. But there were always others. There were always new threats emerging from the shadows. We had learned to live with it. The security, the careful protocols, and the knowledge that danger was never truly gone. But we had also learned to live beyond it, to build a life that was not defined by fear. The restaurants had expanded. My role in the legitimate businesses had grown. We had bought a house upstate for weekends away from the city. We had built something real, something worth protecting. I worry sometimes, I admitted quietly, about bringing her into this world. Into your world. Our world, Dante corrected gently. And she will be protected, loved, taught to be strong and brave and dangerous if necessary. His hand stayed on my belly, but also kind, because her mother is the best person I know, and she will teach her that strength is not just about violence. Tears pricked my eyes. Damn pregnancy hormones. You are going to be such a good father. I am going to try. He kissed me softly. With your help. Marco and Vincent had quietly excused themselves at some point, leaving us alone in the nursery. Dante pulled me carefully into his arms. Careful because I was approximately the size of a small planet, and held me while the sun set outside. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For choosing me. For staying. For giving me a life I never imagined I could have. I pulled back to look at him. You saved me first. That night at the gallery. Every day since. We saved each other, he said simply. And standing there in the nursery we built together. In the home we had made. Waiting for the daughter we had created. I knew it was true. This life was dangerous and complicated. It was far from the fairy tale most people dreamed of. But it was ours. And I would not change a single moment. Not the fear, not the blood, and not the impossible, reckless choice I had made that night to follow a stranger into the darkness. Because that stranger had become my husband, my partner, and my home. And together, we had learned that love was not always safe. Sometimes it was terrifying and violent and born from trauma.